Welcome, everyone. I'm seeing people. There we go. I was going to say I was waiting for that little bit of lag after clicking start the webinar. I'm seeing a good group of people coming in, so welcome, everyone. I'm just going to give it another minute to have for people to sign in because I'm sure people are coming on for their lunch breaks to join us for this wonderful topic during lunch. So I'll give it a minute and then I will introduce Karen and Brittany here with us today.
We need music, Renee.
I know I need to put in like the elevator hold music while we're waiting. But I also want to make sure we have enough time and don't take up too much of your time. So since it is 12:01 now, if there are any people that are joining, and I'll take a sip of water real quick. But to those of you who just joined us, welcome to our special education legal clinic. We were just waiting to see if more people are coming in and even more coming in now. But I will get started. This is the Ohio Special Education Legal Clinic. It is a collaborative between Abdenauer Weicker, Disability Rights Ohio, and the Ohio Coalition of the Education for Children with Disabilities. My name is Renee Stromsky. I'm a special education attorney with Abdenauer Weicker. And the three organizations put on this created this special education legal clinic just to be a collaborative resource, a free collaborative resource to families in the Ohio state to make sure they are getting the resources and education that they need related to special education for their students. This is our July 21st monthly legal clinic. We always start the first hour of our clinic is the third Monday of every month from 12 to 1, and we do a different workshop on a special education legal topic, or I'll say special needs related topic. Sometimes it can go a little bit outside of special education. And then it is followed by guidance sessions. We have 4 individual guidance sessions from 1 to 3 o'clock that are 30 minutes where participants can sign up and hop on, and there will be attorneys and advocates waiting for you from one of the organizations, whether it's AW, DRO, or OCECD, and waiting to answer any questions you have related to special education. This month, we have with us 2 incredible members of the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. We have Karen Jeffries and Brittany Williams, and they are going to be presenting on the science of reading today, which I'm super excited to hear more about. And I will let them introduce themselves again in just a moment, but wanted to let everyone know first that closed captioning is available for this webinar. And then this is also being recorded right now, and the recording will be posted on our website, lawyers, the number 4 students.com/legal clinic. By the end of the week, usually it should be posted, if not within the next couple of days. So you can have access if you need to hop off early or if there's anything you forgot and want to go back on and remember. And if you want to go on and sign up for our session next month, which will be the 3rd Monday in August, which I believe, if I do some math, I believe that might be the 17th. That sounds like it might be right. If I'm wrong, it'll say on the website, whatever that 3rd Monday is, and it'll be on private insurance coverage and healthcare transitions for special needs families. And like I said, you can sign up for that and the individual guidance sessions at the website, which I'll drop in the chat. But without any further ado, we are talking about the science of reading today, and I will turn it over to Karen and Brittany. Thank you so much for being here. And one more thing that I almost forgot. Sorry about that. I've got a lot to cover in this introduction. Last but certainly not least, we do have the question and answer function available on this webinar. And Karen and Brittany have are kindly, of course, allowing questions and answers throughout the presentation. So if you have a question and want either of them to expand on something or just provide a little bit more detail, feel free to drop a question in the question and answer, and I will stop them and make sure it gets answered for you as soon as possible. And then we will also reserve some time at the end of the webinar for more questions and answers. So now, without any further ado, I think I've got it all this time. I will turn it over to Karen and Brittany. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Renee. I really appreciate being here. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Karen Jeffries. I am a literacy specialist in the Office for Exceptional Children with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Joining me today is Brittany Williams. She is a wonderful co-lead of the Parent Mentor Project. And she is also a member of the Office for Exceptional Children, working on our urban support team. And together today, we are going to address the science of reading and the Parent Mentor Project, talking about how we can impact students with disabilities. As Renee had alluded to, I really like a bit of a conversation, so please don't hesitate if you have some questions along the way. So with no further ado, let's kind of jump into it. The science of reading and our Parent Mentor Project. As we think through today, I kind of want to ground us as to what the objectives are, because the science of reading is huge. There's a whole lot to it. I'm not going to do a real deep dive today. So for those of you that are very familiar, hopefully this will just be affirmative to what you already know. What my main objective today is to explain that science of reading research and how the typical brain develops. Then we want to identify the skills that we should be focusing on for students who struggle with reading. And then finally, identify how can parent mentors offer support. So let's get going. The science of reading. How does this impact our students with disabilities? I guess the first question that comes up very often is, well, do students with disabilities, can they learn how to read? And I really feel like that makes us need to set the groundwork for the science of reading and actually students with disabilities in general. As we think about students with disabilities, it's really important for us to remember that reading is an essential component in today's society. I think we'd all agree that it's fundamental to school, work, community participation, and social interactions. And so that being said, we want to help all students achieve the most reading success they can possibly have. Next, we need to know, what is this group that we're talking about, students with disabilities? What percentage of students in Ohio actually are students with disabilities? And you will see that it's about 17.1% of all of Ohio's preschool through age 21 students are students with disabilities. You see a number there that's roughly 269,324 students. I think the last and most important thing to remember as we get started today, that students with disabilities are actually general education students first. And the most important thing is that students with disabilities most of them have the same cognitive abilities as their non-disabled peers. So let's kind of put a picture with it. As I gave that big number, you might have tried to visualize, well, what does that really mean? That percentage, that 17% of students with disabilities, if we went to the Buckeye Stadium, they would fill that stadium 2 2/3 times. And the reason that's so important for us to address is that many times people will hear a percentage like 17% and say, well, that's not many. But for anybody that's ever been to the Buckeye games, you know how big that stadium is and just how many students we're now talking about. So I just kind of wanted to give you a visual for that. You'll also see on this slide where we break down the categories of disabilities, and you will see those top 3. As we look at the first 2, specific learning disabilities, this is where dyslexia falls under. Also, we see the other health impaired. This is where ADHD falls under. And I'm a little sad to report that that third most common disability is autism, which has really increased in recent years. As we look at the state, and we're thinking about literacy and the science of reading, it is a state priority. As you look here and we look at our department priorities, you'll see there are 5 of them. Notice that literacy is at the top. Accelerating learning actually goes right along with literacy, as does student wellness. As we think about a student's confidence, and when they know how to read, think about what happens and how that does impact their wellness and their confidence and so forth. How reading would help our students with disabilities be prepared for workforce readiness. And of course, that last one is talking about us delivering high quality services and resources to help strengthen everyone's knowledge of what's happening. So, going right along with that, we've had a couple of recent things that have happened. As you know, there are some laws that guide the science of reading. You may have heard about them. And as we look, House Bill 33 was a really important bill that came through. And as of just this June, as of June 30th of this year, every preschool through grade 12 educator was required to complete a science of reading professional development course. So you need to be confident that the educators working with your students now have a real, they've had some real professional learning on the science of reading. Going along with that, Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement, and I'm not sure if Renee's dropping these links into the chat or not. These resources will all be available to you to read at your leisure. I was very excited to be a part of Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. This first edition came out back in 2019, I believe. Maybe it was 2018. I could be wrong. This is the third edition. So you need to know that Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement is a working document. This isn't a stagnant piece. You'll see new revisions every 1 or 2 years. And I'm very excited that in the most recent edition, they address students with disabilities throughout Ohio's plan. So let's get into it. The science of reading. What is it? What are we talking about? When somebody says it's a word that's really gained traction recently, but the science of reading isn't new. As we think about the science of reading, it's actually this evidence that's come about. And as you can see, we've had cognitive psychology, neuroscientists, education research, linguistics have all been involved in this thing we call the science of reading. But this alone doesn't really define it. And so the Reading League knew that we needed to have a definition that people could understand, because a lot of people think, well, this thing is new, and it actually isn't. So if you want to, you can go to the Reading League and just type in the Science of Reading Defining Guide, and you can download this guide that I'm showing free of charge. Or if for $8, you can pay to get your free handy dandy hard copy of it. Within this guide, it really describes in layman's terms, what is the science of reading? I want to share with you their definition. They talk about it, and it's a really long definition, so I've broken it into 3 bullets. They talk about that the science of reading is this vast body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. Note that the research has been conducted over the last 50 years all over the world. So this isn't just something that's happening here in Ohio or even in the United States. This is worldwide. It's derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in this preponderance of evidence that informs how proficient reading develops, why some have difficulties, and then most importantly, how we can most effectively access and teach, therefore improving student outcomes for all. Stanislas Dehaene is a famous French cognitive scientist who has been studying this for many, many years. And in 2010, he made this comment that it's just simply not true that there's hundreds of ways to learn to read. So when it comes to reading, we all roughly have the same brain that imposes the same constraints and the same learning sequence. So here's the deal. We have these things called neural pathways that we build within our brain. And what we have learned through all of our studies is we actually have the ability to rewire the brain when needed. 1986 was a really important year as Tunmer and Goff created, I guess they said Goff and Tunmer, I gave Tunmer credit first, that they created a model called the simple view of reading, where we talked about what were the skills that we really needed to work on in order to become good readers. And what we talked about is that we need word recognition, but we also need language comprehension. And when we have both of those, we can then get reading comprehension. You'll see that that's a multiplication problem. So we say that reading comprehension is the product of word recognition and language comprehension. The reason I really want to concentrate on this is that many times IEP goals form directly around comprehension. And as I'll talk with you today, while reading comprehension is the ultimate goal, we might want to be thinking about those skills that would help us to get there. You'll note that it was in 2000. So, guys, it's only 2025. So, this is relatively new that in 2000, the reading panel identified what we call the 5 big ideas of reading. Some people call them pillars, but what they identified were the things that we really needed to focus on in order to become reading. You can see them as they fall into the simple view. To have word recognition, we need phonemic awareness. That is speech sound awarenesses. There's no print involved there. Then we also need phonics skills. And sometimes people think the science of reading is just about phonics, and it's so much more. You'll also see that over in that language comprehension side that we need vocabulary. Studies have been done that a 3-year-old's vocabulary can determine future reading success. Vocabulary is so important. Please don't misunderstand, though. If they don't have the vocabulary they need, we need to work on that. It doesn't mean they won't become good readers. Notice that comprehension is also a component of that language side. And then obviously we want all of those things to happen with fluency, and fluency then becomes that 5th pillar. As we look at the reading brain, I used to teach this a lot as I was a former consultant, and we used to talk about, okay, we have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere of our brain. And I used to say, where does reading primarily take place? And told them they'd had a 50-50 chance. And it's actually in the left hemisphere. I used to always say, there was a song, this will date me. There was a song that said, to the left, everything you own in a box to the left. And so I used to sing that to remind everybody, the reading brain's in the left hemisphere. You can see the parts of the brain that are responsible for our speech sounds, our language comprehension, our word analysis, our letter word recognition. I don't know about all of you, but sometimes the brain can get kind of hard to remember. Oh, wait, is that the frontal lobe? Is it the occipital lobe? Where is it? So there's another model that I really like to refer to, known as the 4-part processor. This is located, like we said, in the left hemisphere of the brain. And when we think about, everybody has a 4-part processor, everyone. And right now, all of you are activating your 4-part processor. And it can only be activated in one of 2 ways. It could be activated through speech, which is the phonological processor, or it could be activated through print. Now, we know that speech for most is natural. Notice I said for most. And know that we don't typically teach our children to speak. I don't know about you, but when my babies were young, we would just talk with them all the time. I didn't teach my 2 boys to say mom by saying, okay, today we're going to learn mom. Mom, bring it in. Like, that's not how they learned to say mom. They naturally learned it through that exposure. That's that phonological side, that speech side. But then along the way, we needed to be able to do what we call the alphabetic principle, connect those speech sounds to their written sound. So we needed to be able to say and associate it with an M. Ah, associate that with an O. Another M, and be able to write that down. On this slide, it illustrates the word cup. And you can see when the letters are between those two little things are called virgules. Kind of fun word. Those virgules means that we're just talking about the sound. So over on the left, you can see we're saying k, p. Over on the right side, you see the written form of the word cup. So when students can naturally hear those sounds and they can then associate them with the actual letters that they represent, that's that beginning of that sound symbol repetition. But notice that we've got meanings in the middle, and words have multiple meanings, even something as simple as the word cup. So when we say cup and they write the word cup, now we need to talk about, well, what could cup mean? Well, cup could actually be cupping your hands together. Cup could be what we're going to measure with. In golfing, they have the cup that they put the balls and things in. And so then we also have a cup that we drink out of. Now we have all these multiple meanings and we have to put it in context. As we read, we have to identify, well, what meaning did they mean? And all of this happens naturally. That was a whole lot about the 4-part processor. Do we have any questions along the way?
No, we actually haven't had any questions yet.
Well, good. Then that means maybe I'm doing okay and it's making sense.
Yes, it is to me at least. And I have been dropping the links in the chat of these you've been talking about. The only one I haven't been able to share, unfortunately, was the RIMP, the template RIMP. The
Yeah.
link wasn't working on the ODEW website.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, we'll
Yeah.
have to address that, Renee. Thanks for letting us know. I
Yes, of
haven't been there,
course.
haven't gotten there yet. So,
Oh, yeah, no
so
problem.
thank you so much. So just to bring home this 4-part processor that's in that left hemisphere of our brain, we've got our phonological, our orthographic processors. That's where it's activated. Notice that there's the connection first at the foundation between speech and print. We then go up into meaning and then the context. So Stanislaw Dehaene, he once again brings it together for us and says, when we read, we recognize the letters, combining them into graphemes. We connect the speech sounds to decode the words. We connect the meaning processors to connect all and recognize all those words together. And here's another really important thing, that the areas for speech sounds and meanings are already in existence for spoken language. So we have part of that 4-part process really well developed before we ever actually begin to read. And that is why read alouds are so important, because they truly are helping to develop the reading brain. Oh, he's just going to reiterate what I just said. He's saying that we use the same parts of the brain for spoken language and written language when it comes to speech and meaning. Hollis Scarborough came along a little while later. I'm not going to belabor this slide for a long time because this is a lot, but you might hear about something called the reading rope. And there's also a writing rope that talks about additional components. As we started with the simple view, we just attached it to the 5 big ideas of reading. And what Hollis Scarborough did was break it down even further and note that to have good language comprehension, here are some skills that we really need to have. So in addition, we need to have background knowledge. Now, to build background knowledge, that means that we need to constantly be providing experiences. Knowing that the students that come have various background knowledge, we have to build that as we're reading. We need to continually work on vocabulary. It's really important that when we're reading stories that we choose some rich vocabulary. We have great discussions about them. and have students utilize that vocabulary. There's also the study of language structures that becomes really important in instruction, talking about syntax and semantics in sentences. Verbal reasoning is very important as well, as far as being able to make inferences and things like that. And then knowing the genre that we're reading, understanding there's different types of text that we'll be exposed to. That's all the different components of language comprehension. So it was a little bit more than just vocabulary and comprehension as listed earlier. Then we have on the word recognition side, that phonemic awareness begins with phonological awareness. Phonological are the bigger parts. Phonology starts with syllables. In other words, just recognizing that we have some short words and we have longer words. Then understanding that those words are made up of individual sounds. That's the phonemes. Then we just continue on. I did want to just talk a little bit what the research has shown here about phonological awareness, and I'm guilty of this. I used to have students in intervention groups for onset and rhyme and to identify syllables. And what the research has shown is that what we really want to focus on are the sound symbol relationships, and that the basic place to start, not saying that those skills aren't important. We wouldn't want to put a student in intervention for rhyming. We wouldn't want to put a student in intervention focusing on onset and rhyme, which is basically saying k is the onset, at is the rhyme. What we really want to focus on is k is the beginning sound in cup, or k is the beginning sound in cat. So that's at that phoneme level. The next thing that we want to work on then is that decoding piece. Decoding is much more than just that basic sound symbol. The teaching of syllable types is really critical. That would be a great goal to be working on as well. Sight recognition. A lot of people think that we have these basic lists of sight words, and I want you to know that every word wants to grow up to be a sight word. To become a sight word means that you recognize it with automaticity. So think about all the words that you can just read day to day and not have to stop and sound them out. For you, most words that you read are sight words. But then you get faced with a larger word that maybe isn't in your usual vocabulary, and you have to stop and really think, oh, how do I know that word? At that point, that word isn't a sight word. But after a lot of uses, it then becomes a part of it. So just remember that sight words, we need to be careful about how we use that, because a lot of times we have IEP goals around sight word recognition. So now let's go to IDEA, and we talk about the teaching of reading. And, if we have a student who's struggling, do we need to make sure then that we only provide things at their instructional level? Gosh, they're really struggling. We can't have them on their grade level. Here's what IDEA says. It requires that students with disabilities, including the students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, so those would be students who do have some lower cognitive abilities than their non-disabled peers, they should be able to have access, and here comes the most critical part, make progress in the general education curriculum. That's the same curriculum as everyone has. In other words, we need to know that special education does not mean, oh, they get a special curriculum. What we really want to do is provide skills, strategies that will help them to be successful within their general education classroom. So this is what Renee was referring to earlier. As we have students that struggle, the science tells us in the science of reading that we have the ability to build those new neural pathways. So when they struggle, we want to have what we call a reading improvement and monitoring plan. I will make sure that that link gets fixed and you will have access to that. The department has a RIMP template available. And basically, a lot of times people say, well, wait, my student already has an IEP. Why do they need a RIMP? Well, it's really important that they do because the RIMP is what really specifically addresses that reading deficit, that skill that they need to be working on. It should align with what is written in their IEP, but it doesn't replace it. In other words, we want to give them more instruction, not less. There's a whole lot to be said about that, but it's just really, really important that our students have these reading improvement and monitoring plans, because sometimes individualized education programs, those IEPs, do not have specific reading goals, yet students are very far behind in their reading. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. These are the skills then that we want to be focusing on. When you're writing a reading improvement and monitoring plan, those are reported to the department. And so some of the things that could be reported would be, we're working on phonemic awareness, we're working on phonics, we're working on vocabulary, we're working on reading fluency, and we're working on reading comprehension. Note that many times we start with that comprehension. If you take nothing else away from this webinar today, I want you to remember that comprehension is the ultimate outcome. And in order to have comprehension, all those other skills need to be in place. When a student is having a difficult time comprehending, it's mostly because of one of those other factors. That's where the instruction needs to be. That's where the IEP goal should be. So I've talked a lot about what we should be doing, and I want you to know what we shouldn't be doing, or what is the science of reading and what it is not. It is not this philosophy. It's not something that someone can say, oh yeah, I don't believe in that. It's truly grounded in research. In education, we find we often talk about the pendulum swinging back and forth. And a lot of times we have things that begin and, then after a while, it's just like they go away. And that's called that pendulum swing back and forth. Well, the science of reading is not that. It's not something that's going to go away. It's here. It's based in research. A lot of people think it's a political agenda, and that could be the furthest thing from the truth. It's not a political agenda at all. It doesn't matter what your political preferences or anything. All children, all people need to be exposed to things that align with the science of reading. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And most importantly, it's not a program. Like, you don't go out and buy the science of reading. We want programs that are aligned to the science of reading. And the last one kind of says the same thing as the previous one. It's not a single specific component of instruction, because a lot of people think, oh, the science of reading is phonics. And as I've pointed out, it's much more than that. So as we move along, here are some additional resources that I had not even provided Renee with. So Renee, sorry that they don't even have these yet. We wanted you to know, I spoke about dyslexia earlier, and we do have our dyslexia guidance out. And that would be a really great thing. You would see in the dyslexia guidebook many things that align with what I just said today. You'll see things about the simple view of reading, Hollis Scarborough's rope, and so forth. Another great resource is talking about our high quality instructional materials that are available. This takes you, this link to this QR code takes you to the Ohio Materials Matter site on the department's website. And it's really important that in special education, your students are being exposed to high quality materials, just like all other students are. Another great resource is through our partners at Ocali, and they have a wonderful resource ensuring that there's access to general curriculum, and it's called Learning for All Students. And this, again, is a link that will take you to that particular site, and lots of really great resources there as well. And with that being said, I have now provided you a bit of an overview of what the science of reading is. So I hope you understand that it's research based on 50 years of research and so forth, how we've learned about the brain, how we understand that we can actually rewire the brain when we have a phonological deficit, we can work on that in intervention and build that so that we have the right decoding skills. I've also talked then about those different strategies, specifically those strategies identified in the RIMP are, and I said strategies, and what I really meant was skills. We'd have different strategies for different students. So there's different ways of doing it for all. I really thank you for listening to me today, and I hope that I gave someone an aha that maybe they didn't have before. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn this over. Now that you've heard about what the science of reading is, Brittany's going to share with us about parent mentors.
And Brittany, actually, before you get started, we just have a quick question from the audience, so it was a good timing. Elise would like to know, are these all mandates or just recommendations to use the science of reading structured literacy?
Great question. It's mandated. I mean, that was why the law came out, and teachers, all educators were required. It was a mandate that they went through that training. And there's even more training. You know, there were abridged versions. So we've had dyslexia required trainings. We've had the science of reading required trainings, which really complement one another. So like there were 18 hours of dyslexia training that took place. And then once you took that, you could take an abbreviated science of reading course. That dyslexia training was only mandated for certain grade levels. And so it came out then that all educators had to take the science of reading. So if you had already done the 18 hours of the dyslexia training, you had an abbreviated course for the science of reading. But if for some reason you hadn't participated in that, you had like 18 plus hours of science of reading training. So it was a mandate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we have another question. How many colleges are doing science of reading or dyslexia classes for the college students? I'm guessing, meaning for people who are in the education major.
That again is a fantastic question. And it is now, they're all really jumping on board now. We have what we call the Ohio Dean's Compact. And we have been working with colleges and universities, and they have been working. I can't tell you the exact number offhand, but colleges understand now that in order for their students to be employable in the state of Ohio, they must have this science of reading background, and they are working to rebuild their syllabuses. There is now, and apologies, I can get this information. There are now I don't want to say the wrong word. I don't know if it's laws or what it is, but there are things now being required at the higher education level. All educational agencies, all higher ed, are being forced to look at their syllabus and make sure that they are including things. However, now you get to that accountability piece, because up to this point, it's just been suggested and there hasn't been like a mandate. I'm not 100% sure where we are on that, but great question. And please know that universities, colleges across Ohio are very much aware of what's going on and working hard.
Thank you, Karen. And I agree that was a very good question. Another question was, now that Ohio has mandated the science of reading procedures to be used, have they at the same time banned the use of reading recovery or Lucy Calkins?
Yes, it has been.
Thank you. Yes, easy enough. And another question, what happens if if there's a student in 5th grade that is reading at a 2nd grade level, do they still have to create a RIMP since that is only for K through 3rd graders?
Oh, great question. And actually, that's a new part of the law. You know, it used to be RIMPs became a RIMP because of the 3rd grade reading guarantee. So for many years, the RIMP was only up till 3rd grade. 2 years ago, that changed, and RIMPs are now required to follow a student until they are reading on grade level. So therefore, it is no longer about, oh, well, I'm in fifth grade, the third grade reading guarantee doesn't apply to me. Now, here's the kicker though, it's not retroactive. So like if you have somebody that's in fifth grade and they've never been on a ramp, you don't suddenly just create one, although there's nothing that says you couldn't. But there isn't a law now that's retroactive that says that. But 2 years ago, it expanded to fourth grade. We're all the way to middle school now. And we've got middle schools that are preparing to provide interventions based on students' ramps, and it will be approaching high school within the next few years.
Thank you, Karen. So it's not mandated, it's mandated moving forward, but if someone is already in those grades, it doesn't, the law doesn't require it to be retroactively put in, but that doesn't mean that a school can't do that. Can't give them.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, perfect. And then one final question. What does the kindergarten dyslexia screener look like?
Oh, great question. Basically, the kindergarten screener you'll see on our approved lists. And please remember that that screener just identifies risk for dyslexia. We're not trying to diagnose. And what it includes are, we were talking about the importance of the phonological skills. And so that initial screener will have phonemic awareness skills. It'll have first sound fluency. It'll have, which is just as it suggests, identifying the first sound. It will also have phoneme segmentation fluency, where they have to identify all the sounds in words. There will also be a nonsense word fluency assessment, where they have to read what, as it suggests, nonsense words and understand what vowel sounds should be there. And then finally, there's also a letter recognition component. What I just quoted you would be what they would receive at the end of kindergarten. And if you note in the law, that dyslexia screener cannot be given until after January 1st. So that's what they would get. Many schools are actually giving the dyslexia screener at the beginning of first grade. And all the skills that I just said would be a part of it, with the exception of first sound fluency. In first grade, it would be the phoneme segmentation fluency. It would be some letter recognition. It would be the nonsense word component as well.
Thank you very much. And another question, they're just rolling in now for you, and then I promise we'll get to Brittany. Will there be a new law about the third grade guarantee if they are on an IEP and a RIMP, but the school or the IEP wants to exempt them? Is there going to be certain criteria in order to exempt them?
That's a really deep question. I don't know that there's going to be a quote unquote new law. I want to be careful about how I articulate this, because what we know from recent things, there are some new things that are coming out that allude to all of this. The bottom line is that too many times we're looking to exempt students, and we want to include them as much as possible. The only time that we really understand a possible exemption is when they are in the third grade, and that is the first time state tests are allowed, or not allowed, that was the wrong word. That's the first time state tests are given. And so it's at that point that a district could utilize the alternate assessment decision-making tool. And when a student does qualify for alternate assessment, it's at that point that they do not have to be on the RIMP, and all those requirements are exempted. But too often we want to make those decisions back when they're 5 years old in kindergarten. And the idea is to get as much exposure, give as much as we possibly can before making those kinds of decisions. So I don't know that I really answered that well, but that was my little soapbox for a moment.
No, I think that's important. And there was just a comment from Tammy Sebastian, who is with OCECD, and she just said if you are exempt from the third grade reading guarantee, more of a point, and you would probably agree with this, but that doesn't mean that you don't teach the skills for reading anymore. You still have to, if it's necessary per the IEP, you still need to teach the reading skills.
Correct. We always want to be teaching reading.
And another question. Oh, DRO. Sorry, Tammy. I don't. Tammy's with DRO, not OCECD. I apologize. There's another question. Who is responsible for the RIMP if they're not on an IEP? Is that a general education team or a special education team?
General education. So that's, that goes back to, so the ramps are for everyone. And so that's why I really wanted to reiterate as we began the presentation that students with disabilities are general education students first. So RIMPs were actually created for our general education students. And in the beginning, a lot of times people thought because I had an IEP, I was exempt from a RIMP. But here's what we discovered. Many times in the IEP, we weren't really addressing these specific reading skills that needed to be addressed.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense to me. And there was another question. Is there a data point in how much districts are violating or complying with these mandates? I know this one was just kind of brand new, dropped it just right on June 30th, you said, but are we able to see, any public reporting of how they are complying with these mandates or seeing that through state complaints being filed or anything?
Another really great question. I don't believe that we have, there's nothing available to the public at the moment, but the department is collecting data to identify what districts are complying, who's not. And so, as you alluded to, this is all pretty new. And what they know is the number of educators who completed the science of reading courses. And I'm not 100% sure how it's all being tracked, but please know that they are tracking it. Nothing's been yet released to the public.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. Do you know what kind of there's another question. It just says, will they lose funding? But I guess the broader question would be, do you know if there are any accountability measures in place for those who are not in compliance? And again, I know it's really new.
So please know it is really new. And to be honest, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that as we move forward, there has to be some sort of, in other words, I shouldn't say anything at this point. I'm thinking to previous experience I had in another state where we had to do something new and we actually got like a sticker that we put on our license that showed that we had done that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they're doing in Ohio. I'm just saying that I would assume there would have to be something to show that in the future, but at this moment, I don't know. So I hate it that this is being recorded because I probably shouldn't have said that. That was a whole nother state.
No, that's okay. I mean, I don't know is a good answer for when you don't know the answer. And like we've been saying, it's a new program. So if it's not there yet, I'm sure there might be there. Again, I'm not from ODEW, so I can say this. There probably will be something eventually, but we don't know. We don't know. There was just a response to I think will be the final one, but there's just a quick response to one of our questions about the fifth grader, whether they have to create a RIMP for them. And Martha had answered that the parent in consultation with the principal can decide to move the parent up, or maybe exemption, but the parent in consultation with the principal can decide to move the student up to fourth grade without having to do an IEP exemption. So that could apply to special ed and general education students, assuming they're talking about exemption from retention, not from taking the test.
That is correct. Yes, we can have There are exemptions from retention portions, and that's a parent and principal decision. That's which what was said there is exactly right. But we're talking about taking the assessment. We'd rather them not be exempt from that.
That makes sense to me. And that is, you got 13 questions in that in that time. So I appreciate all of your answers, and we will be able to move it on to Brittany.
Hi, and actually, I'm going to be talking first. I hope you
Oh,
all can see
Lindsay,
me. This
geez.
is Lindsay Havey. I think I was hiding on some of your Zoom screens at the beginning.
We're
Hello,
still
good
hiding. Thank
afternoon.
you for joining us.
Um,
Appreciate
yeah,
Lindsay,
yeah, yeah.
I want to apologize. I only saw Brittany and I thought, well, something must have happened, and I wasn't going to ask, well, where's Lindsay? So
No worries.
my
I'm
friends, this
here.
is the fabulous Lindsay Havey, who also is a part of our urban support team and leads this parent mentor project. And sincere apologies, Lindsay.
Definitely no need. I was going to say, Karen, I'm so glad to be here. I always love listening to Karen talk about literacy. She's so passionate, but makes the information so accessible. And I wrote down every word wants to become a sight word when it grows up. I have not heard you say that before, and I want to thank you. I'm going to take that one. So good afternoon. I'm Lindsay Havey. I'm one of the co-leads in the Office for Exceptional Children for the Parent Mentor Project, along with Brittany Williams. And today we want to share a little more in depth with you about Ohio's Parent Mentor Project and how parent mentors can really be instrumental in empowering families to advocate for their child's needs. We're going to talk a little bit about what parent mentors do, how you can find one in your district, and then specifically, Brittany's going to talk about how they can support in literacy. And I did see a couple of parent mentors on the call this morning, so shout out. Thanks for being here. As the subtitle on that first slide was showing, parent mentors' role is really to strengthen those relationships between families and educators, because we know this supports success for all students, and especially for students with disabilities. So the objective of the Parent Mentor Project is to be that partner with families and helping them navigate the system with services and resources within the school district, but also in the broader community to support families of students with disabilities. So let's talk about what a parent mentor is. So parent mentors provide free support and resources to families of children with disabilities and to school staff members. Parent mentors typically work within designated school districts or educational service center or ESC areas. So those that work with an ESC or for an ESC may be supporting numerous districts. They're required to be a parent of a child with a disability. So they're truly providing that peer support, parent to parent support when they're working with families. They've got that been there, done that kind of perspective that you just can't bring if you haven't sat on that side of the table. Most parent mentors are funded through a grant provided by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to a school district or an educational service center, covering numerous districts, as I mentioned. There's a small number of parent mentors, less than 10 across Ohio, that are self-funded, meaning that their districts are providing the funding for that. Parent mentors can provide information and resources for improving student success, especially in literacy, planning transitions from age 3 all the way up until age 22 or when they graduate from high school, and really understanding the rights and responsibilities of families and students. So parent mentors can attend IEP meetings or other meetings if the parent requests or if the school requests. They can host information sessions for families and staff members. And this part is really important. They are really strong in connecting families, schools, and communities by providing those just-in-time links, phone numbers, names of people to call for local services and organizations that support students with disabilities. Parent mentors can provide information about federal, state, and local special education laws or policies, and they can share updated information about special education. So things like timelines and deadlines, What are the eligibility processes? What does informed consent really mean? What is prior written notice? Other requirements like that. And just a couple of things additional I want to note while we're on this slide. Parent mentors support schools too. So they are often called on to provide the parent perspective to educators at that building level or at a district level. They are often asked to participate in a planning committee or an implementation team. And this is certainly relevant with literacy when we're talking about new curriculum and a lot of new things happening and a lot of questions out there, right? So a lot of school districts and ESCs are very strategic about having the parent mentor be on the front end of that planning to say, well, how have you thought about how to make this accessible to families and understandable? And then you can see in bold, I have that they are not advocates. So parent mentors are not able to come into meetings and push the school district's agenda or push the parents' agenda. Their agenda is to come into the meeting. They work with families ahead of time to prepare the family for the meeting so that the parent can be their child's advocate. They're there to build the parent's capacity to communicate confidently and to keep the discussion moving productively. We want parents to build their own communication skills, their own knowledge of the system, and really their own confidence to be their child's advocate because the parent mentor is not always there. So we want them to have those skills and confidence to be able to step in and provide that for their child. And let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. So what you can see on this slide is a map of Ohio, and you might be wondering, does your school district have a parent mentor or where are parent mentors in Ohio? So on the slide, you'll see a couple different ways to locate this information. There's a QR code that goes to the map that you see a little snippet of there, and that is by school district. So this map is hosted and maintained by the Ohio State University Center on Education and Training for Employment. We have a contract with them to provide professional development and oversight support for parent mentors. So you'll see the web address is through OSU for this map, and that's why it's a part of the parent mentor website, and this is a specific page on it. So to orient you to all of the many dots that you can see on this picture, the orange dots, or at least they're orange on my screen, with white stars in them, those indicate a parent mentor coverage for an individual school district. So pretty good. We've got a lot of orange dots on there. We also have white dots with a blue ring, and those represent regional support from the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities, or OCECD. You can either kind of zoom into the map and see where your district is, or on the left side, there's a searchable list of school districts, or you can just scroll. But that's how you can get connected. You click on the district name and it pops up with exactly who the contact is, their name, their phone number, and their email. And same thing for the blue and white dots as well. That connects you with an OCECD information specialist. So Brittany, I believe, yes, I see those in the chat. Thank you. She put in the chat the direct links, the link to the Ohio Parent Mentor Project webpage, as well as the other way you can get to that map, which is the Families of Students with Disabilities page. You can, if you go to that Families of Students with Disabilities page, that's on DEW's website. And if you scroll a little bit down, it says, how do I get one-on-one assistance? And you click on that and it can take you to parent mentors. We also have the Ohio Coalition on there. So as proud as we are of all the orange dots with white stars on the map, you can see visually that not every district has a parent mentor. And as I mentioned, the other dots on there, the blue and white ones, thanks Karen, for the visual back on there. That is when we are making a referral to the Ohio Coalition. And again, you can get their information right on there. And what I think is so cool about that is that every parent, every family has access to one-on-one support. So we're talking a little bit more pointedly about parent mentors, but I've seen OECD folks on here. I saw Amy and maybe a couple others, and we think they're wonderful too. And we feel great referring families to call them. We know they're Ohio's federally funded parent training and information center, and they are ready and willing to support families. So accessing this map is a really helpful resource because it takes parents directly to the name, the phone number, and the email of the person that they can talk to. Um, Not just a generic inbox or a form and we'll call you back kind of thing. And we all know how powerful that can be to just like get to the right person when you have something you need to talk about or a question that's kind of burning and it's about your kid. It's important to find someone as quickly as possible. So to make the connection more directly around what that support looks like for literacy, I'm going to pass it off now to my colleague, Brittany Williams.
Thank you, Lindsay. So parent mentors can support your child's literacy needs through a variety of ways. One way is reiterating the importance of literacy. As Karen mentioned earlier, the department has 5 priorities, and those priorities help frame the work of the parent mentors. And literacy is listed within those 5 priorities, of course, and is the foundation for all future learning. So, with Lindsay and I being the leads of the project and department representatives, we constantly inform the parent mentors through our vendor, The Ohio State University. They provide weekly digital newsletters. They help with the alignment of trainings and learning opportunities for our parent mentors. And we also encourage parent mentors to engage in district and community opportunities as well. Another way is through the science of reading. So, parent mentors, of course, are not literacy specialists. However, we do a series of learning opportunities and resources for parent mentors to receive throughout the year. That assists in them gaining and enhancing their knowledge of the science of reading and why it matters for all students. The third one is through the RIMS, the IEPs, and core instruction. Again, as Karen laid out previously, sometimes it can be confusing which document, service, or areas to prioritize. The parent mentors can help parents understand how to piece those things together. They are skilled in communicating across teams and can help the parent identify next steps to most effectively address questions and concerns as they come up. Next slide, please. When families and educators work together, students thrive. Strong communication and relationships between school and home are not just helpful, but essential to a student's success. Families are a child's first and most important teacher, while the educators bring that expertise in curriculum and instruction. Together, they form a powerful partnership. Communication between families and educators help develop into effective communication, which builds trust, enhances that shared decision making, and empowers families to advocate for their children. Communication is a two-way engagement to share that information, and it is the parent mentor superpower. So they can help bridge that to join the two parties and open those lines of communication. So if you think about when you receive the helpful explanation, those layman terms of that standardized test results, that is a key principle there of effective communication and providing that clarity through accessible language. Relationship building between families and educators starts with, again, that communication piece. The communication helps cultivate and foster that family educator relationships that enables both parties to become a shared partner in the student's challenges and successes. Relationships help establish that personal connections and can lead to overall improvements in family engagement and ultimately, most importantly, the impact for students. The parent mentor can assist in this through cultivating their own initiatives of engaging families and connecting them to the district and community staff and resources. Lastly, the supports across subjects ties to communication relationships that transcends beyond literacy. It is a foundation to student engagement, trust, motivation, and success. So no matter the subject area, it can support across all subjects. And then we move into our question segment. Let's see if we can beat 13 questions.
We have 2 questions to start at least, and I know we're a little bit over time, so I hope that's okay with you. It's okay with us to keep going until we get through this.
Mhm.
The first question was, how do you sign up to be a parent mentor for a district that doesn't have one?
I can speak to that. So our grant funding goes to a district or to an ESC. So if someone is interested in becoming a parent mentor, we recommend you reach out to your district or to your ESC that is in that your district is in the region of. And talk to them about the Parent Mentor Project. We are happy to meet with them if they have questions or would like to talk about it. We do maintain a waiting list for interested parties, and then if a grant becomes available, our team makes a determination off of that waiting list. So please feel free to reach out if we can respond to any more specific questions on that.
Thank you very much. Um, Martha asks, are the district parent mentors considered OSU employees, whereas the parent mentors who cover multiple districts are employees of the coalition?
That is a really good clarification question. So, parent mentors are not OSU employees. We have a contract with OSU to give professional development to parent mentors, and they also support their data collection for us. But the parent mentor is actually employed by whatever that school district or educational service center is that is receiving the grant.
Do you know, there was a follow-up question. Do you know if they have the same training?
All parent mentors are given the same basic training. There is an annual needs assessment conducted in the spring to kind of say what are the priorities right now, what are the concerns that families have, and we ask our participating district leaders as well as the parent mentors to say these are where we're having a lot of families reach out with needs. And so then we also weigh in. So, for example, we have had Karen present before to parent mentors. We have brought literacy to them quite a bit, as Brittany mentioned as well. So, it is the same professional development. However, we also expect parent mentors, individual districts, or ESCs to identify additional professional development that is relevant at their local level. So we recognize there's a basic level of knowledge that we want everyone to have on the topics for that year, but we also say we know that in your part of the state there might be, or in your district there might be a new initiative and you really want the parent mentor to be a part of that, and we recognize that that is what you should do. So it's kind of both. There's the same, everybody gets the same, but then we do ask them to go above and beyond and consider what is the individual need for their district.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad that you are able to provide that kind of specificity while also making sure that everyone does have that same basic training. And Martha said, "Thank you for your answer. It's very helpful." We have another question. Can I change my parent mentor?
Um, the parent mentor would be employed by the district or ESC. I would suggest if you are having a concern with that person, just like with an assigned teacher or something, you talk to that person, or maybe consider talking to the special education supervisor regarding that specific concern to see if you're able to resolve that. You do also have the option, if there is a parent mentor in the district, to speak with someone from the Ohio Coalition. As I said, they're awesome. We love them. So you do have a few options, but I personally, and this is Lindsay, would suggest can you resolve it? Because the parent mentor for your district should be best poised to know what's happening, what the initiatives are, and how to navigate within the systems in that district, who are the people you might want to contact, and how to communicate best across whatever that district systems are. Hope that helps.
I think that's a great answer. That's just me personally too. I think that's a great answer. And I don't see any other questions in the chat box. So I'm really glad that you had such an engaging presentation that it prompted questions both about the science of reading and about the Parent Mentor Project. And I'm glad that I learned a lot more today, and I'm sure all of our participants did as well. So thank you very much to each of you. Lindsay, I'll point you out first. Lindsay, Lindsay, Karen, and Brittany, because you kept disappearing off our screens for whatever reason. I apologize about that again. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy, busy, busy days and joining us to teach us a little bit more about your programs that are available, and also to our panelists for being here to help answer questions, and to all of our attendees, of course, thank you for being here to listen. This webinar, like I said at the beginning, has been recorded, and if you give us until the end of the week, it'll be on our website, lawyersforstudents.com/legal clinic, that I should be at the very top of the chat box. I sent that at the very beginning. I'll make sure I'll send it right again here, and that's where you can sign up for our session next month, which will be presented by our firm, Abner Weicker, and that'll be, I was correct, it is on August 18th. Is that what I had said before? I can't remember. I think I had said 17th, but it's on Monday, August 18th, and it is on private insurance coverage and healthcare transitions for special needs. Thank you again to everyone, and we hope to see you next month. And thank you again, Lindsay, Karen, and Brittany.
Thank you.
Take care.